Hi, Lindsay.
Hi, Brandon.
How are you?
Doing well, hanging in.
So you have had an amazing career. You are one of the most versatile people and performers that I know. You are an integral part of Teaching for Dance Device Lab. You have worked commercially on the West Coast. You are a Broadway veteran on the East Coast. You are now teaching yoga, and you are one of my favorite yoga teachers in the city. And I'm excited to dive in a little further with you and just see how that all came about for you. But let's start. I can't believe I'm going to ask you this question because I know the answer really well, but
Yeah.
let's start at the very beginning. And a little side note, Lindsay and I grew up dancing together at our local dance studio in Walled Lake, but I'll let her tell you about that.
Yeah. Started there when I was 3. My sister is 2 years older than me, so they had put her in when she was 3, and then I came right after, and I just stayed with it until, graduation,
Yeah.
and then went from there. But we got all my education there, and then through the the dance conventions that would come to town, and going out to LA during the summers to the Edge Performing Arts Center.
And like something that I really appreciated that I didn't, I took for granted when we were there was the eclectic amount, the range of classes we took. Like we were doing ballroom and we were doing voice, and it was just like, it wasn't just tap, jazz, ballet. There was, if you wanted to do this, there was a program established. And can you maybe talk about the array of things that we touched upon while we were there?
But yes, it was always do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, it like hip hop was just starting, and jazz, tap, ballet. We had to be in everything. And
Right.
Dory would bring in guest teachers, and I think that sort of stuck with me throughout my career. It's like you don't just stop at one thing that you're really good at, because you never know what you're going to be thrown in an audition.
Mm-hmm.
And that part of your resume where it says special skills, you want to be able to like click off all those things on casting networks that you
Right.
can do.
Right.
It's important.
Yeah, I always felt like it was
So
throwing like spaghetti at the wall and just like seeing what sticks, like when we were growing up,
Yeah, that's what it is though. Like some things you're not going to like, some things you're going to be like, oh, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what it is, it sort of like gets ingrained into your style, I think, and how you dance. I think the more knowledge of different styles also makes you quicker at picking things up, and being very specific, which is incredibly important in booking any job, is being specific to what the choreographer wants.
And that's something that it really has taken you throughout your entire career. I mean, there's no way you would be Lindsay Janisse without those skills. And so when you went to LA, did you feel established? Were you like, here I am? Or were you still gaining some of those? Were you sort of like learning on your feet when you were there?
Oh, absolutely learning on my feet. I think because I had spent my summers there I don't remember if it was my freshman year. So it was like 3 or 4 summers.
Mm-hmm.
I had been going out there and just taking class from 10 a.m. till 10 at night, whatever I could get in, like 4 or 5 classes a day, which to me now at 36 years old seems insane that I was able to do that. I had an idea of what LA provided. But I think when I graduated, it was September 11th. So it was a really, September 11th had just happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a really crazy time. So, I had been looking at Chicago, like River North, and I had been looking at New York, Mia Michaels' company, because I had trained there. And New York was sort of out of the picture because we weren't big with NYCDA then.
Right.
And I just didn't know. And right. Musical theater, I didn't think I could sing. So I was like, that's off the table. But I was familiar with LA. Mm-hmm. All this to be said, when I got out there, yes, I had discipline from dance dynamics. I had training of all different styles. I knew what I liked out there. But when I got there into the audition scene, it was a lot of like this new jazz funk and hip hop. And where I thought that I was going to tour with Janet, when it was a little bit more like funky,
right,
more jazzy, all of a sudden the hip hop thing just started taking over. And we had touched on hip hop, but not in the way that it was out there.
Right.
Or what
you can look at a Paula Abdul video from that era now and be like, well, I can do that. And I've never done any of that in my life. It's like, no, I can do that now, but it changed. You're right. It changed like right when you got there. the commercial scene.
Yes. Yeah. And it was cool to like have to like keep up with it and take classes that were completely out of my comfort zone. Luckily, you know, because I've been taking at the edge and I knew teachers, they sort of took me under their wing. And because I was just there all the time, I work studied there. I assisted Mandy Moore there and Eddie Garcia, and I was in Adam's company. And, you know, that was my world. They were sort of like, okay, here's what you need to do.
Right.
Put on big baggy clothing so you don't see your body like, you know, in like these tight things and making these weird shapes that you don't know what you're doing. It's going to feel weird at first as well.
I'm struck by how you mentioned like Mandy and Eddie sort of like taking you under their wings and being a mentor. And it's interesting to me being younger than you and knowing you as that person at the studio. You were a couple years older than me, and I remember you passing that sort of like mentorship onto us, and then you go to LA and where, you know, you're seeking mentors there. Like, I wonder if you can talk about how that shapes you and how that never ends. And, you know, I think about it as down to the studio level, you know, as teachers and studio owners, they are mentors, and you need those people that can affect change like throughout your entire process.
Oh yeah. And I think in life, like it never stops. There's always like, I mean, granted, I've always like sort of started doing new things. Like I didn't stick to one thing. So like now that when I started teaching yoga, it was a whole different set of rules. And like, so there was like a new thing to learn and people to look up to. But yeah, especially starting out in LA, it was like, those people just made me a better dancer because I was sort of raw and we had our specific technique, but they just made me into like a dancer and to be able to express and in a different way. But yeah, at the studios, like I was thinking about when we used to take a dance conventions, and I just can't even fathom this now, but like Greg Russell, say, like just how in love all of us little girls were with Greg Russell, and like how cute he was, and like how we worship these teachers. And you think about it now and you're like, oh, these are just my peers, but like you forget what it meant to us. Good mentors, I think, challenge and don't always give you what you want and teach you in a way that is not that's helpful. So you're not being put down, you're not being told you can't do this. You're like, okay, that wasn't very good, let's do it again, and do it again and do it again, and like maybe different ways of trying it so that way you understand.
We are trying to do a dance device lab. What has been so great is that we have a lot of studios that we work with that, you know, start with one summer intensive, and then next summer we'll do another summer intensive, and the summer after then we'll do 2 summer intensives. And it's so beautiful to see the progression of dancers, but over time, that fear and that stigma of working with a guest person and that sort of mentorship, and, you know, like it can go from like being idolized to being a mentor. You know, the first time you go, there's a lot of nerves and you're like, what is this? What's going on? And then like year 2, it's like, wait, there's an established connection and everyone can dive deeper into that process. And that's been one of the most rewarding things, is seeing that change and that comfort switch.
Totally. Yeah, because if you lose, I mean, there is something to always being scared of someone, you know. I think I'll never stop being nervous when Wayne Cilento comes in to see the show and is watching you dance. That's just, it's because there's a matter of respect, and, you know, but it's also, I don't see him as often. If I saw him every day, the relationship would ease up a bit, you know. And it's within that easing that you get more information, because you get to know them and you get to know their experiences and can learn from them for sure.
So you had a big shift in your career from this sort of energizing time in LA, from then you booked Wicked, which started in LA but brought you to New York. I wonder if you can talk about that transition a bit.
Yeah. So I actually, at the time, was when I got the job, I had auditioned like 5 different times, I think, because the first time I went, I didn't have sheet music, and so my roommate lent me And I think that's a thing in LA. Like people just don't have it, but it was contemporary because it's Wicked. So they're like, go to the audition. So they would have you sing Happy Birthday. But my roommate, Rachel Markarian, she had gone to Oklahoma City University, which has a great theater
She
program.
knew what to do.
And she lent me her Chicago, all that jazz sheet music. So I bring it in and I am singing while dancing all that jazz. I'm gonna rouge my knees and roll my stockings down. Like, and also I did not know how to phonate. I didn't know really how to sing at all because I was so scared of hearing my voice.
Right.
Needless to say, I didn't book it. And
everyone's got a great singing audition story. It's so good.
For that show and for Hamilton, it's like you have to cover. Now the shows are smaller. It's not big like it was. You have to be able to cover a role, and that's not what I wanted to do. I don't want to be principal. I've always just wanted to dance and dance captain and all that stuff. Anyway, I digressed. I was in LA and had auditioned a few times. Ended up taking vocal lessons, doing the work, came back, and they were like, okay, well, thank you. And they put me on file, which I also didn't think was a real thing. And I get a call from my agent in Vegas and they're like, you're being offered the LA company of Wicked. Do you want to do it? And I was like, and that really was like a turning point in my whole career, my whole life. That shifted everything. I don't even know what my life would be if I didn't have this show. So I started doing it in LA and I became the assistant dance captain and did my track every night. And then the dance captain position opened up in New York. And so I moved out to New York and became the dance captain of this Broadway show. And honestly, it was the craziest thing that I think I've ever, like the most stressful, anxiety. These are original company members. I was giving notes to, it wasn't Idina at that point, it was Stephanie Block. But I was 24, and I'd been doing musical theater for a year.
Right.
It was wild. So it was a huge, I was like going to university for musical theater, on its feet, and how to work with people and how to communication skills and leadership skills. And it was.
And you've always been a natural leader, but I wonder how that, can you talk about the speed in which, and the sort of skills that you learned of thinking on your feet and being put in a leadership position at such a young age and being responsible for something? Because I just want to stress, just because you did the show in LA doesn't mean it's exactly the same show in New York. So that, that's some context of you're coming in as this new girl and being in charge, which is amazing and scary.
And terrifying. Yeah. Well, because it's not only, because I learned as the assistant dance captain, I'd started to learn the show, but I had to teach it once with someone else who sort of knew what they were doing. So I sort of saw that process, but I did not understand in any way, shape, or form what was going on. I was like, yeah, I'm assistant dance captain. Didn't know what it meant. And it's Wicked. So there's 9 ensemble girls, 9 ensemble guys, 9 principals. And I'm learning all of this. Right. While living in a new state. It was the middle of February. Mm-hmm. I lived in Brooklyn. My umbrella was turning inside out. I lived 10 minutes from the train. It was a 45-minute train ride. I just remember crying on the train and being like, what did I do? But people were nice. I mean, this is your job. You get into there, you can not respect somebody, but to credit all of them, I don't know what they said behind my back or how they really felt, but I think they saw how much work I put into it, mm-hmm. how much I wanted to do well, how I didn't come at them with ego or being I was 24, what am I going to do? Be here's what I'm telling you to do.
Right, of course.
It's, and I think that's part of being a dance captain. It's part therapist. Mm-hmm. You have to know how to talk to each person. Every single person handles notes in a different way. And you can just come from your point of view and just give them that and just let them handle it. But I have found that I get better results if I speak to you in a way that you are not going to feel like I'm attacking you, because this is also your work. What people are doing on stage, they care about, mm-hmm. and they're doing the best they can do most of the time. And so you want to come from that perspective so they're not, you're not just downing their work. Like it means everything to us. So
I would agree. I think
that
this
was,
the biggest lesson I learned when I started doing associate work was taking the temperature of the room and of each person, and that just being able to read the room and assess and see everyone for where they're at that day is like the more important than giving a specific note is being able to see that and figure out how you can deliver information. That's exactly right. So Lindsay, thank you so much for your time.
you're so welcome. Thank you.
I've looked up to you for so many years, and I am so proud that you're on the Dance Device Lab team, and you do everything with professionalism and integrity and a contagious spirit of positivity and power. And it's been so lovely knowing you and working with you for our whole life, basically. But
I know, right? Well, thank you for having me.
yeah.
I mean, I'm so proud of you for creating this. It's like, it's incredible to have watched it blossom and become what you're doing, and you're just always raising the stakes and trying new things, and it's amazing.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Yeah.
Well, have a good day. Tell everyone
Thank
hi.
you. Have a good class.
Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye, love.
Bye.